Is it possible to create an entire animated film all by yourself? Today I'm talking to someone who did it not once, but 4 times. Denver Jackson is truly one of a kind. He has been passionate about film and animation since he was a kid. So he taught himself all about illustration, 3D modeling, and animation. That alone is impressive, but Denver wanted more. He didn't just want to animate, he wanted to tell his own stories. In a world where animation is dominated by big studios and massive budgets, he decided to defy the odds and create stunning animated films almost entirely on his own. No big budget, no huge team, just his drive, his creativity, and a relentless work ethic. He started with a short film, The Wishing Jar. Then he created a web series, As Luna the First Monolith, and finally he made not one but 2 animated feature films, As Luna the Crown of Babylon and The World's Divide. His work stands out for its rich fantasy worlds and breathtaking animation, which is why I'm really excited to talk to him and peek inside his mind and creative process. Denver, welcome to Write for Animation. It's so great to see you again.
Yeah, same here. My pleasure being here. This is exciting.
It is, and we had a great time at Pixelatl here in Guadalajara. It was really great and inspiring meeting you. And so most people got to know you because you did something very incredible in a world of a big budget animation movie where animation is always considered something that's almost impossible to do if you're not in Hollywood, if you're not with a big studio or a big budget. And you created an entire feature film by yourself, which is amazing. I just want to listen on how, first of all, how the idea even came to you to do something like that. Was it planned from the beginning? And then we'll get into the story idea, the genre, and everything else.
When I started, I always wanted to make feature films. I was weird as a kid. It never occurred to me like how films get made and how many people it takes to make something. And so when I was going at it, I was started out on a short film trying to learn the process of animation. I had a studio space here in Victoria in Canada. It was a shared space with everyone working on their own projects. I would always talk to my one friend who's an animation director and telling him, oh, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to make something that's very inspired by this thing or this big film. He would always stop me and say, it takes a lot of people to make an animated film. And I never thought about that. I just always thought, oh, I can just do it. I get inspired by something and I'm like, oh, I can do that. I always wanted to make a feature. I wrote a feature screenplay and I wanted to make it, but I didn't know at first how animated films got made. So I started teaching myself on short films and I just taught myself the production process, breaking it all down. And then it was essentially my animation school, just learning each step of the process. And then from there, I felt very comfortable being able to jump into a feature, but I wanted to try something smaller. So I tried a web series, which was an hour long. I wrote it and then I did all the animation and all the process, storyboarding it, everything, and then jumped into my first feature after that. And even on my first feature, I wasn't really sure if I could get it made. So when I started production, I wasn't 100% sure it was possible until I finished it. And then with Worlds Divide, totally comfortable in production, just going at it.
That is just incredible. Every time I talk with you, it's beyond getting to learn all the specifics. And some of our audience wants to know, did you use this software or this other software? Why did you have a schedule and things like that? That are super interesting. But I want to take a step back and ask you about your mindset. Is there anything that you were nurturing before when you were younger in terms of mindset to get to say something like that and take such a bold action and also following through? And it's a film, it's out there, it's real, and it's wonderful.
I think a lot of times when you start a project, a lot of things that holds me back or held me back before and holds a lot of people back is the fear of not having something perfect, or the fear of possibly it's not going to be good, or they don't have the right tools. For me, it's just already establishing in my head that it's never going to be perfect. Even when you're done the production, there's always going to be something that you didn't quite know how to do, and you learned from that process, and you just push that forward into the next production. And so I always come at it with a mindset of nothing's perfect. I just got to do it, and I just got to finish it. Because after I finish it, I have so much experience and so much knowledge after doing that one thing that on the next thing, I can fix everything that I made a mistake on. Making mistakes is like the best thing that you can do on making an entire feature film. It's like you learn from everything that you've made, that all the mistakes that you've gone through. That gets me excited to jump onto the next thing because of all those mistakes. I'm like, okay, now I know I've learned from this. I can move on to the next production and actually implement all that experience I've learned. Ignoring the fear and just pushing forward is the best solution.
So you still get the emotion of the fear when you do something like that, but just
Oh, definitely.
you're an exception in a very good way. And they see myself and a lot of other people that are too worried about failure. We listen to this, failure is going to be, your stepping stone, failure is going to embrace failure. Why is it so hard for most people, do you think?
To embrace failure?
Yes.
I think there's a lot of pressure put onto what we do. And especially like for me, making a feature film, it's 3 years of my life. So if it fails, there's a lot of pressure there that's like, okay, it's going to fail. And that was 3 years of my life. I think that's the thing that holds a lot of people back is that pressure of spending that time failing. For me, accepting the failure, just accepting outright that it's possible that I might fail at this, how much better am I going to be by the end of these 3 years?
Were you thinking about low quality or not being able to finish? What was the main fear for you?
The main fear for finishing the production, I always felt like I could finish what I start. The main fear for me on the most previous production was time. Basically not having enough time to perfect something because everything was self-funded. I spent 2 years in production just on my own funds and trying to animate the entire thing. Going through production in the script phase, which is the most important phase of a story, there wasn't a lot of time for me because of how much money I had and how much I could survive that production process. So I had to just keep going even though there were some elements here and there that I felt like could have used way more time, but I just didn't have it. There was a lot of things in the script that I saw problems with, and I figured, okay, I need to start production. I'll jump into storyboards and I'll try and fix it in storyboards. And then once I was done the storyboards, I'm like, okay, there are some elements in the story that could need work, and maybe I'll try and fix it in production because I just had to keep going. That limits the amount of time on the base structure of making the film.
The general idea was, okay, I'm going to save up some money that is going to sustain myself for a certain amount of time. And then did you treat yourself as your own employee? Did you have a rigid schedule? Were you hard on yourself as a boss?
I have a certain amount of things that I need to get done in a day, and I'll have a list. I worked 7 days a week for 2 years straight. If I didn't meet those deadlines on that list, I would just stay up all night working. And so I wouldn't go to sleep. So the incentive for me to get all those things done, all those tasks done on that list is sleep. I'll be able to go to bed. So it was a very rigid schedule. I strictly start work at 11 a.m. every single day. And I would work till 3, 4, 5 in the morning and then repeat the next day.
Before Denver reveals his unique writing process, I want to invite you to join the Write for Animation Academy, a community where you'll connect with other passionate storytellers who are all about improving their craft. We write together, learn together, and help each other thrive in the animation industry. When you join, you get instant access to our short film writing course, where you'll finish your own short film script in just 4 weeks. If you're looking to boost your animation career, if you're ready to take it seriously, join us today at writeforanimation.com/academy. The link is down below. And now let's go back to Denver to learn all about his writing process.
If you had to define the kind of skills that you had when you were starting, how those skills evolved throughout the production. Let's start with screenwriting. What was your experience with screenwriting before jumping into this adventure?
Probably zero experience, I'd say. I don't really think I'm the best writer necessarily, but I just did it and moved forward with it. I started to make, at an early stage, I was pretty young, starting to write. And then I started to make friends with other writers, like screenplay writers. They would always talk about how it was very hard for them to sit down and write a script. I never thought about that because they always talk about writer's block and they can't put words on the page. But when I did it, I never thought of myself as a writer, so I just wrote. And I think that was really important part in the writing process. Ultimately, you just got to put words down on a page and write. And that's the number one thing I tell writers, or my advice to writers really, is get a first draft written, because the first draft is the most hardest thing to do. And a lot of writers will start writing and they would start to get through the first act, and then they would go back and try to perfect that first act. But I tell them that's the wrong way to do things, because by the time you reach the end, that first act is going to change. So you spend months perfecting a first act and you finish your screenplay, and then you're like, oh, I got to change the first act. And so that time is wasted. Just get through the first draft of your script and make notes of all the changes that you need to do in that first act or second act or what have you. That's my real advice for writing, is just sit down and write it and finish the draft.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The daily practice is the best thing you can do to become a better writer. And so, how did you organize the work practically? For example, you can use index cards. You also draw. So you maybe was it a mixture of written page and storyboards? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think very visually. So my process is both. So I will write and I will also sketch things out. I would sketch like either images I have in my head for the story or like beat boards. And then I would also be working on the outline. Things change drastically from the very first iteration to what the script turns out to be. So my writing process is a bit of both sketching and also writing. So I think very visually. So I will do beat boards and sketches or ideas, illustrations of shots I have in mind for the story, and then also be writing the outline. Like the first iteration of a story changes drastically to the final draft of the script. And so like I'd be looking in the sketchbook and it's like a totally different story that I initially had for what it turns out to be. And also like writing, like you sometimes will write so many drafts, by the time you get to like the 8th draft, you kind of lose sight of why you're telling the story. The best thing sometimes to do is to go back to your initial ideas and see why it was so inspiring to begin with. Sometimes I get lost in the drafts and then feel like, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this now. So going back, I get re-inspired and being like, okay, this is why I wanted to tell the story. And then I'll write the next draft. My process is a bit of both. It's like sketching things down and also writing.
You mentioned that at the beginning you shared this idea with others that would tell you you're crazy. What are you trying to do? Was it for you from the beginning very important that you kept the project solo? And I'm curious, especially in those moments where you felt a little lost, would you go and share the draft, or your idea was I need to finish this by myself?
I would share it with friends. So I would definitely be sharing iterations of the script with friends and getting feedback on how the script was working. I think like sharing is vital, but you need to know when to share your project. I have a very small group of friends that I trust, and I will think about when to share particular stages of the story, because once they see the story, by the time you get to like the animatics or like a first cut, they already know the story, and it's harder to get the feedback where they're seeing it for the first time. Finding like stages of different groups of friends of who I can trust to give those notes is very important. In terms of like working solo, it was mainly because of budget. Like animation costs so much money that I assumed that it would just be impossible for me to do this independent work myself or with a team of people. Here in North America, like trying to get into the Hollywood system, you need to work from the ground up, going from storyboard artist, eventually becoming a director. And even when you become a director, there's no promise in telling your own stories. So I really just wanted to tell my own stories. And to me, this was the best way to do it.
It's so encouraging. I hope that many people are feeling the same I'm feeling. I'm thinking about some projects that I have sitting there, and those are like 5-minute short films. And now in front of you, it's like, why aren't you starting right away and learn the skills that you need? And they could be maybe not 100% solo. Could be with some friends. Are you exactly working with more people in this next project, or repeating the experience?
Yes, so the goal is to be able to bring more people on board on the next project. My favorite part on the last production was post-production. It was because I got to work with sound designers and music composers and actors, voice actors, and the mix, being on the mix stage and jumping back and forth with ideas on how things are done. Like, and people have great ideas for the story, and like just thinking about how working with a team of people is very inspiring. So the hope is in production on the next thing, I have a team of people, team of artists that I can be working with. But that's definitely a goal on the next. Every project has a little like goal that I want to reach and what I want to learn and what experience I want to get. And that's an important part for the next thing.
2 questions. First of all, would you go back and redo the adventure? If you could go back, would you still decide to go?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Did
No
you have
question.
an all these lost moment where you thought to yourself this was not going anywhere or you couldn't finish? Did you had that night of the soul moment?
No, actually, this has always been something I wanted to do, and I don't have any regrets doing it. I'll even like look at my first work, and even though I'm not particularly happy with it or how it turned out, or like the animation wasn't as good, I will still share that stuff with people just because I think important to appreciate where you came from, seeing how you started and the progression to where you get to. And it's been over 10 years of me doing this, and I'm still improving with every project. There's no real regret at all doing this.
Awesome. Yeah, that is great. I would love to end with practical advice for someone who wants to create something solo or with a very small group of friends. And maybe they're not thinking feature, maybe they're thinking a pilot or a teaser or a short film. Can you guide us step by step on what would you recommend and also things that might have been a terrible mistake, but you learned from them and maybe some other people can avoid?
I say just start the project, take things one step at a time. I think that's the most important lesson I learned when making a production, is focusing on each stage of production as a project in itself. So like focusing on script and just focusing on that as a project. And then by the time you finish your script, you feel like you've accomplished something, and then go to the next thing, which is storyboarding. Board your film and then treat that as a project. And then once you've done that, you feel accomplished. If you start thinking of everything at once, even in like, especially in the script stage, and you're doing a lot of it yourself, you get overwhelmed by the entire production. There's way too many things to think about, and you may just end up quitting because you're thinking about all the storyboarding, character animation, background paintings, compositing. There's so much to do, and it's overwhelming. So one step at a time is my recommendation for anyone starting a project like with an indie crew. It's just focusing on those little steps. Eventually, once you treat each step, get through each step, you'll have a film or a trailer or a short.
It's very inspiring, and I hope that many people will take your advice, just get started one step at a time, one part of the process at a time. Thank you so much, Denver. This has been fantastic. Hopefully it will inspire many people. Really, if you watched until the end and you're thinking that maybe you don't have the means, you don't have the time, there's always a way, one step at a time. We just heard this from Denver. And what's next for you? I know you're already working on a new project. Tell us also where people can find you and learn about what you're working on today.
I'm on all the social medias. If you just type my name, you'll probably find me. Next project, I'm 5th draft, 6th draft into the scripting phase. Hopefully having a final draft by the end of the year, and also the character design work by the end of the year. Just jumping into working on the next thing.
What's been the hardest part in this project and when it comes to screenwriting?
For this project, I wanted to take a year off from doing a film. The real struggle was taking the time off.
How so?
Because after finishing my first feature, Worlds Divide, I wanted to take the year off and recoup, get re-energized. But it was really tough not having work or not having a next project to work on. And so I started to come up with all these ideas and kept putting it in the back of my mind thinking, okay, I'm just going to relax and not work on the next project. Even though I'm coming up with all these ideas, I'll just push it till a year. It got to a point where I just needed to start writing.
As a first thing, I would love to ask you, tell us a little bit about the project, Worlds Divide. Tell us the gist of the story, the technique, and how you created this production.
Worlds Divide is action adventure fantasy. It's about a young girl going to another world and trying to get back home. The process for it is basically using Blender, which is an open source free software. Blender has been fantastic for that process just because anyone can get Blender and use it and just make an animated film. That's the whole process behind it, was starting out with storyboards and then going into animation using Blender and figuring all that pipeline out. It was my first time using Blender too, so I kind of learned Blender for this production.
Amazing. And hopefully we'll do part 2 soon. Tell me when you'll be back in Guadalajara. Will you be at CTN or any American upcoming festival?
I have no plans yet. Once I start production, I kind of disappear from the world.
Yes.
And no one hears from me until I'm done.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But
Okay,
I'll definitely like keep you updated on where I am.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it was great, Denver, seeing you again. I don't want to keep you too long, and thank you for staying a little longer. And
my pleasure, Pietro.
wish you the best with the production.
Thanks. Anytime.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Denver. Making a film on your own is a huge challenge, but even with a team, budgeting can be just as hard. In this video, Pixar story artist Mitra Shahidi shared how she produced her short film Starling with basically no budget at all. It turns out it is possible. I'm Pietro, this is Write for Animation, and I'll see you in the next video.